Welcome to the Stoic Journal. Today we're tackling one of life's most challenging obstacles: toxic relationships. Whether it's a friend who constantly drains your energy, a romantic partner who undermines your confidence, a family member who manipulates your emotions, or a colleague who creates unnecessary stress, toxic relationships can consume our mental peace and hinder our personal growth. The ancient Stoics, despite living nearly 2,000 years ago, offered timeless wisdom on navigating difficult human connections. Stoicism isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. It's about cultivating inner strength and clarity even in the most challenging circumstances. It teaches us that while we cannot control others' behaviors, we can control our responses to them. This script explores how Stoic philosophy provides powerful tools for detaching from toxic relationships without losing our humanity in the process. We'll examine practical Stoic techniques for setting boundaries, managing emotional reactions, and making difficult decisions about the people in our lives. Whether you need to create distance from toxicity or completely sever ties, Stoic wisdom offers a path forward with dignity and inner peace. Part 1. Recognizing toxic relationships. The nature of toxicity. Before we can apply Stoic principles to toxic relationships, we must first understand what makes a relationship toxic. The Stoics emphasized clear perception of reality, what they called phantasia cataleptic, or grasping impression, as the foundation of wisdom. Seneca wrote, "He who doesn't know what he's looking for won't recognize it when he finds it." Similarly, if we don't accurately identify toxicity, we cannot effectively respond to it. A toxic relationship typically exhibits these characteristics: undermines your well-being. The relationship consistently diminishes rather than enhances your mental, emotional, or physical health. Creates persistent negative emotions. Interactions leave you feeling drained, anxious, ashamed, or inadequate rather than supported or uplifted. Lacks reciprocity. The relationship is fundamentally imbalanced, with one person giving significantly more than they receive. Involves manipulation. The person uses guilt, shame, intimidation, or other tactics to control your behavior. Shows disrespect for boundaries. Your limits, needs, and values are consistently disregarded. Features chronic criticism. You face ongoing judgment, belittlement, or disparagement. Generates feelings of walking on eggshells. You constantly monitor your words and actions to avoid triggering negative reactions. The Stoic lens on toxic relationships. The Stoics would view toxic relationships through several important principles. 1. Dichotomy of control. Epictetus begins his Enchiridion with the fundamental Stoic principle: some things are within our control, while others are not. In relationships, we control our own choices, responses, and boundaries, but we cannot control another person's behavior, attitudes, or choices. The Stoics would advise us to recognize this distinction clearly. When we expect to change toxic people, we set ourselves up for frustration and disappointment. A Stoic approach begins with accepting that we cannot force others to change, but we can change our relationship to them. 2. Preferred indifference. The Stoics classified most external things as indifference, neither good nor bad in themselves. Some, like healthy relationships, are preferred because they align with our nature and facilitate our flourishing. However, the Stoics maintain that even preferred indifference should not be clung to at the expense of our virtue and inner peace. This doesn't mean the Stoics would advise indifference toward mistreatment. Rather, they would encourage us to value relationships appropriately without making our happiness entirely dependent on them. 3. Virtue as the highest good. For Stoics, virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance is the only true good. A relationship that requires us to compromise our integrity or character to maintain it would be viewed as harmful from a Stoic perspective. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This principle applies even, perhaps especially, in our closest relationships. Signs you may be in a toxic relationship. From a Stoic perspective, these indicators suggest a relationship may be harming your eudaimonia, flourishing. Your virtues are compromised. The relationship regularly leads you to act against your values or better judgment. Your tranquility is consistently disturbed. After interactions, You find yourself ruminating, upset, or emotionally destabilized. Your self-sufficiency is undermined. You become dependent on the person's approval or feel unable to function without them. Your rational faculty is clouded. The relationship creates such emotional turbulence that clear thinking becomes difficult. Your other relationships suffer. The toxic relationship consumes so much energy that it impairs your ability to maintain healthy connections with others. Your self-improvement is hindered. Rather than supporting your growth, the relationship creates obstacles to becoming your best self. Epictetus warned, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Sometimes, the path to growth requires letting go of relationships others might expect us to maintain. Part 2. Stoic Principles for Detachment. Reframing attachment. The role of premeditatio malorum. The Stoics practiced an exercise called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, to prepare themselves mentally for life's challenges. This practice can be particularly helpful in detaching from toxic relationships. Seneca advised, we should remind ourselves that all things that we now enjoy will someday perish. Everything that can happen should be rehearsed in advance. This isn't pessimism, but preparation. By mentally rehearsing the possible loss of relationships, we can reduce unhealthy dependency. Recognizing a relationship's temporary nature helps us avoid clinging to it. Maintain perspective. When we acknowledge that all relationships eventually end, we can value them appropriately without overinvestment. Prepare for difficult decisions. If we've already contemplated life without a particular person, the prospect becomes less frightening if separation becomes necessary. Consider this practice. Each morning, briefly reflect on the possibility that a difficult relationship in your life might need to change or end. How would you handle this? What resources, internal and external, would help you move forward? This mental preparation builds resilience for whatever may come. Oikeiosis. Expanding your circle of concern. The Stoic concept of oikeiosis describes the process of expanding our concern beyond ourselves to others. However, the Stoics recognized that our care should be proportionate and appropriate. Hierocles, a Stoic philosopher, described concentric circles of concern with ourselves at the center, then immediate family, extended family, community, and finally humanity. While we have duties to all, our closest bonds receive our greatest care. In toxic relationships, we often place others' needs above our own well-being. The Stoic perspective would suggest reordering our priorities to ensure our own flourishing first. Epictetus stated, first learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Similarly, first establish your own well-being, then determine what you can realistically offer others without self-harm. Amor fati, loving what happens. The Stoic principle of amor fati, loving what happens, seems counterintuitive when applied to toxic relationships. How can we love something that causes harm? The Stoic interpretation doesn't mean passively accepting mistreatment, but rather acknowledging reality as it is before deciding how to respond. It means facing the truth that some relationships are harmful without denial or wishful thinking. Epictetus advised, don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will go on well. This means accepting the person as they are, recognizing their limitations without expecting them to suddenly transform, acknowledging the relationship's true nature, seeing clearly what the connection actually is, not what you wish it were, embracing the opportunity for growth, viewing the challenging relationship as a chance to practice virtue and develop resilience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The toxic relationship, while difficult, provides an opportunity to practice wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. The view from above, gaining perspective. The Stoics practice the view from above, also called cosmic perspective, to gain distance from immediate troubles. This mental exercise involves imagining yourself looking down on your situation from a great height, seeing it as a small part of a vast universe unfolding across time. When applied to toxic relationships, this practice helps reduce emotional intensity. The relationship's problems, while significant, are seen in broader context. recognize impermanence. The current difficulty is understood as temporary in the grand scheme. Depersonalize conflict. You can see both yourself and the other person as humans attempting to navigate life, each with their own struggles. Marcus Aurelius advised, survey the circling stars, as though yourself were in mid-course with them. This cosmic perspective doesn't diminish your legitimate concerns, but helps prevent them from consuming your entire mental landscape. Part 3. Practical strategies for detachment. Setting Stoic boundaries. The concept of boundaries might seem modern, but it aligns perfectly with Stoic principles. Boundaries define what we will and won't accept in relationships based on our values and well-being. Epictetus taught, make it your practice to say to every harsh impression, you are just an impression and not at all what you appear to be. Similarly, we can learn to say to unreasonable demands, that is your expectation, but it doesn't align with my values or well-being. Stoic boundary setting includes clarifying your values. Identify what truly matters to you and what constitutes unacceptable treatment. Communicating limits clearly. Express boundaries directly without emotional reactivity. Maintaining consistency. Enforce boundaries evenly rather than making impulsive exceptions. Accepting consequences. Recognize that the other person may react negatively to your boundaries. Musonius Rufus wrote, we should not disregard wrongdoing, but show those who do wrong what they should have done instead. Setting boundaries isn't punishment, but clarity about how you expect to be treated. Practicing emotional distancing. The Stoics recognized emotions as responses to our judgments about situations. By examining these judgments, we can create healthy emotional distance from toxic dynamics. Epictetus explained, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. When someone's behavior upsets us, it's our interpretation of their actions that causes distress. Stoic strategies for emotional distancing include cognitive distancing. Observe thoughts about the person without automatically accepting them as truth. I'm having a thought that they're intentionally hurting me, rather than they're intentionally hurting me. Physical distancing. Create literal space when possible. The Stoics valued periodic solitude for reflection. Time distancing. Consider how this interaction will look in a week, a month, or a year. Will it matter as much as it seems to now? Motivation analysis. Consider what drives the toxic person's behavior. Often, harmful actions stem from the person's own insecurities or mistaken beliefs rather than malice. Marcus Aurelius advised, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. This isn't cynicism, but preparation. By expecting difficult behavior, we're less reactive when it occurs. The art of indifference. The Stoic concept of indifference, apatheia, is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean not caring at all, but rather not allowing external things, including others' opinions and behaviors, to disturb our inner state. Epictetus taught, make it your study to respond to every harsh impression with you are just an impression and not at all what you appear to be. Practicing Stoic indifference to toxic behavior means recognizing the behavior as external. The person's actions are outside your control and separate from your worth. Withholding your emotional reaction. You can observe hurtful behavior without granting it the power to determine your emotional state. Choosing your response deliberately. Rather than reacting automatically, you pause to consider the most virtuous action. Maintaining your standards. You continue to act according to your values regardless of how the other person behaves. Seneca advised, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. When faced with toxic behavior, pause before responding. Ask yourself, is this worth disturbing my tranquility? What response aligns with my values? Gray rock method, a modern Stoic technique. While not explicitly mentioned by ancient Stoics, the modern gray rock method aligns perfectly with Stoic principles. This approach involves becoming as uninteresting and unreactive as a gray rock when interacting with toxic individuals. The method includes minimizing emotional reactions, responding neutrally to provocations, keeping conversations brief and boring, avoiding sharing personal information or engaging in dramatic discussions, redirecting personal questions, politely steering conversations away from sensitive topics, maintaining pleasant but minimal engagement, being civil without investment in the interaction's outcome. Epictetus would likely approve. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. The gray rock method often means appearing dull or disengaged to toxic people, which aligns with the Stoic willingness to be misunderstood while pursuing virtue. Practicing rationally selective avoidance. The Stoics valued community and engagement with others, but they also recognized the wisdom in selectively avoiding harmful influences. Seneca advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. He also warned, withdraw yourself as much as possible from the vulgar sort, for if conversation with better people is helpful, conversation with any and everybody does definite harm. Stoic-inspired selective avoidance includes limiting exposure, reducing the frequency and duration of interactions when complete separation is impossible, creating buffer zones, ensuring meetings occur in contexts that minimize stress, public places, limited time frames, using intermediaries when appropriate, communicating through third parties to reduce direct contact, intentional scheduling, planning interactions for times when you're best equipped to maintain equanimity. This is an avoidance from fear but strategic withdrawal to preserve your well-being and virtue. As Marcus Aurelius noted, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Part 4. Decision-making framework for toxic relationships. Assessing virtue and value. The Stoics would have us evaluate relationships based on their alignment with virtue and their contribution to our eudaimonia flourishing. Epictetus advised, in every affair consider what precedes and follows, and then undertake it. A Stoic decision framework might ask, does this relationship support or hinder my practice of virtue? Does it encourage wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance? Does it require me to compromise my integrity? Does this relationship contribute to or detract from my eudaimonia? Does it foster my growth and well-being? Does it consistently create distress that outweighs benefits? Is maintaining this relationship the best use of my limited time? Could the energy invested here better serve other relationships or pursuits? Does this relationship support my capacity to contribute to the broader community? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, we must make haste, then, not only because we are daily nearer to death, but also because the conception of things and the understanding of them cease first. Our time is finite. We must allocate it wisely. The role of duty in relationships. The Stoics placed great emphasis on duty, kathekon, particularly our obligations to family and community. This can create tension when these relationships become toxic. Hierarchals described our duties as extending outward in concentric circles from ourselves to family, friends, community, and humanity. But what happens when fulfilling these duties comes at significant cost to our well-being? The Stoic view suggests, duty doesn't require self-destruction. We have obligations to others, but also to ourselves as rational beings deserving of dignity. The manner of fulfilling duty can change. We may maintain family obligations, for instance, while changing how we engage, e.g., limited contact, clear boundaries. Virtue remains paramount. When a relationship asks us to compromise our character, virtue takes precedence over conventional duty. Cicero, influenced by Stoicism, wrote, when we assume the properly human role, we are particularly bound to maintain the common bonds and community of the whole human race. Sometimes maintaining these bonds requires distance that allows both parties to maintain their dignity. When to consider complete detachment. While the Stoics valued harmonious human relationships, they recognized that some connections become incompatible with a virtuous life. Seneca advised, associate with those who will make a better person of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. Complete detachment might be considered when the relationship involves abuse. Physical, emotional, or psychological harm is never acceptable from a Stoic perspective. Your core values are constantly violated. The relationship repeatedly requires you to act against your principles. Reasonable boundaries are consistently disregarded. You've clearly communicated limits that continue to be violated. The relationship endangers your well-being. Your mental, emotional, or physical health is significantly compromised. Attempts at improvement have failed. You've made sincere efforts to address problems without meaningful change. Epictetus taught, some things are in our control and others not. When reasonable efforts to improve a relationship fail, accepting this reality becomes necessary for tranquility. The virtuous exit, leaving with dignity. If separation becomes necessary, the Stoics would advise doing so with virtue intact. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best way of avenging yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer. A Stoic approach to ending relationships includes clarity without cruelty. Communicate your decision honestly, but without unnecessary harshness. Minimal drama. Avoid public conflicts, revenge, or attempts to recruit others to your side. Accountability without blame. Acknowledge your own contributions to problems without assuming responsibility for the other's actions. Gratitude for lessons. Recognize what the relationship taught you, even if through difficulty. Focus on the present forward. Direct energy toward future flourishing rather than ruminating on past injuries. Seneca advised, let us meet with bravery, whatever may befall us. Let us never feel a shudder at the thought of being wounded or of being made a prisoner, or of poverty or suffering. This applies equally to the wounds of relationship endings. Part 5. Rebuilding after toxic relationships. Self-sufficiency and recovery. The Stoic ideal of self-sufficiency, autarkia, is particularly relevant when recovering from toxic relationships. While Stoics valued human connection, they emphasized that our well-being should not depend entirely on others. Epictetus taught, no person is free who is not master themselves. Toxic relationships often create dependency that undermines this mastery. Stoic practices for rebuilding self-sufficiency include identifying internalized voices. Recognize when your self-talk echoes toxic messages from others. Reclaiming judgment. Practice making decisions based on your values rather than anticipating others' reactions. Cultivating inner resources. Develop practices that restore your sense of capability and wholeness. Building resilience through reflection. Consider what the experience taught you about yourself and your needs. Seneca advised, withdraw into yourself as far as you can. Associate with those who will make a better person of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. Recovery often requires both solitude for healing and carefully chosen new connections. Practicing forgiveness without vulnerability. The Stoics viewed anger and resentment as harmful primarily to the person experiencing them. Yet forgiveness in the context of toxic relationships requires nuance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Stoic forgiveness might include releasing resentment for your benefit, letting go of anger that harms your tranquility, understanding without excusing, recognizing the factors that contributed to harmful behavior without removing accountability, wishing for the other's improvement, hoping they develop wisdom rather than continuing harmful patterns, maintaining appropriate distance. Forgiveness doesn't necessarily mean resuming the relationship. Seneca noted, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Time and distance often facilitate the perspective needed for this form of forgiveness. Rebuilding your circle with discernment. After detaching from toxic relationships, rebuilding your social circle requires discernment. Epictetus advised, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. Stoic principles for forming healthier relationships include selecting for character, prioritizing integrity and virtue in new connections, observing actions over words, evaluating others based on consistent behavior rather than promises. Seneca wrote, ponder for a long time whether you shall admit a given person to your friendship, but when you have decided to admit him, welcome him with all your heart and soul. The Stoic approach to trust after betrayal. Rebuilding trust, both in others and in your own judgment, is a significant challenge after toxic relationships. Epictetus taught, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. The experience of betrayal, while painful, offers valuable lessons about trust. Stoic approaches to rebuilding trust include Trusting as a practice of virtue. Viewing appropriate trust as part of courage rather than naivety. Accepting risk as inevitable. Recognizing that all relationships involve some vulnerability. Refining rather than abandoning discernment. Learning to trust more wisely rather than not at all. Evaluating patterns over incidents. Judging trustworthiness based on consistent behavior over time. Marcus Aurelius advised, be content to seem what you really are. Extend this principle to others. Look for authenticity and consistency rather than perfection. Part 6. Stoic wisdom for specific toxic relationships. Family relationships. When blood ties bind too tightly. Family relationships present unique challenges for applying Stoic principles. The strong sense of duty, kathekon, associated with family can make detachment particularly difficult. Epictetus acknowledged, remember that you must behave in life as at a dinner party. Is anything brought around you? Put out your hand and take your share with moderation. We don't choose our families, but we can choose how we engage with them. Redefining duty. Fulfilling family obligations in ways that preserve your well-being. Setting clear genealogical boundaries. Distinguishing between biological ties and healthy relationships. Finding the middle path. Avoiding both total estrangement and unhealthy enmeshment when possible. Accepting what cannot be changed. Recognizing family members' limitations without expecting transformation. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together. But do so with all your heart. This doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, but loving humanity even in difficult people. Romantic relationships. Detaching with dignity. Romantic relationships often create the deepest attachment, making detachment particularly challenging. Seneca wrote, nothing is so damaging to a noble soul as the thought that one may ever separate from a friend. If they might, they never would. Stoic principles for detaching from toxic romantic relationships include questioning passionate attachment, examining whether intense emotions are clouding judgment, distinguishing love from dependency, separating genuine affection from fear of being alone, maintaining philosophical perspective, remembering that romantic love, while natural, is not the sole source of fulfillment, practicing gradual detachment, systematically reducing emotional investment before physical separation when possible, honoring the relationship's positive aspects, acknowledging what was genuinely good without allowing it to justify continuing harm. Epictetus advised, remember that you ought to behave in life as you would at a banquet. Something is being passed around and arrives in front of you. Reach out your hand and take a moderate portion. Workplace toxicity, professional detachment. The workplace presents unique challenges for detachment, as financial necessity often requires continued interaction with toxic colleagues or supervisors. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Stoic strategies for workplace detachment include role compartmentalization, distinguishing your professional role from your essential self, focus on function, concentrating on the work itself rather than workplace politics, virtue as the only true reward, finding satisfaction in doing your job or regardless of recognition, strategic disengagement, minimizing involvement in office drama and conflicts, exit planning, methodically preparing alternatives while maintaining current responsibilities. Seneca advised, associate with people who are likely to improve you. When possible, seek mentors and colleagues who exemplify professionalism and integrity. Digital detachment, Stoicism in the age of social media. While ancient Stoics didn't contend with social media, their principles apply remarkably well to digital relationships. Epictetus taught, if a person gave your body to any stranger he met on his way, you would certainly be angry, and you feel no shame in handing over your own mind to be confused and mystified by anyone who happens to verbally attack you. Stoic approaches to digital detachment include selective engagement, choosing platforms and contacts that contribute positively to your life, information diet, monitoring what content you consume and its effect on your tranquility, reality calibration, remembering that online personas rarely represent complete human beings. Response discipline, practicing restraint in reacting to provocative content. Attention sovereignty, reclaiming control over where you direct your mental focus. Marcus Aurelius would likely advise, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking. This perspective helps prioritize meaningful direct connections over digital simulations. Part 7. Advanced Stoic Practices for Lasting Detachment. The Inner Citadel. Cultivating Unshakable Peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the inner citadel, the fortress of mind that remains impervious to external disturbances. The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting, he wrote. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Building your inner citadel includes daily philosophical reflection, regular examination of your judgments and reactions, mental rehearsal, preparing for difficult encounters in advance, tranquility practice, developing the habit of returning to calm after disturbances, memento mori, remembering life's brevity to maintain perspective on temporary troubles, self-dialogue, conversing with yourself as a wise friend would during challenging moments. Seneca advised, we should have the resilience of an athlete, able to endure whatever blows are inflicted on us. The inner citadel is this resilience made manifest. Philosophical journaling as a detachment tool. The Stoics were prolific writers. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was originally a personal journal. Writing offers a powerful means of processing emotions and clarifying thought. Stoic journaling practices include morning preparation, writing intentions for handling difficult relationships with virtue, evening reflection, examining interactions for opportunities to improve, emotional analysis, identifying the judgments underlying strong reactions, letter writing, composing unsent letters to express and process feelings, gratitude practice, noting positive aspects of life despite relationship challenges. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius as a form of philosophical development. Similarly, writing can help clarify your understanding of toxic dynamics and your path forward. Community and support. The Stoic approach. While Stoicism emphasizes self-sufficiency, the philosophers also valued appropriate community support. Seneca wrote, no one can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility. Stoic approaches to seeking support include selecting wise counselors, choosing advisors based on their character and judgment, purposeful vulnerability, sharing experiences to gain perspective rather than simply venting, reciprocal improvement, building relationships where both parties grow in wisdom, learning from others' experiences, studying how others have navigated similar challenges, contributing to community, using your experiences to help others when appropriate. Epictetus taught, we were made for cooperation like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth. Seeking support isn't weakness, but recognition of our social nature. Living well, the ultimate response to toxicity. The Stoics believed that living virtuously was itself the highest good and greatest satisfaction. Marcus Aurelius advised, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. The ultimate Stoic response to toxic relationships includes flourishing despite difficulty, creating a meaningful life regardless of past harms, maintaining integrity, refusing to adopt toxic behaviors even when wronged, practicing wisdom, using difficult experiences as lessons for future discernment, cultivating healthy relationships, building connections based on mutual respect and virtue, contributing to others, using your hard-won insights to help those in similar situations. Seneca wrote, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. When emerging from toxic relationships, this courage becomes the foundation of a new chapter aligned with your deepest values. Conclusion. The Stoic path forward. Detaching from toxic relationships through Stoic principles isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. Rather, it's about reclaiming your agency, protecting your well-being, and creating space for connections that nurture rather than deplete you. The journey requires patience. As Epictetus reminded his students, no great thing is created suddenly, any more than a bunch of grapes or a figure. If you tell me that you desire a fig, I answer that there must be time. Let it first blossom, then bear fruit, then ripen. Healing from toxic relationships follows a similar pattern: gradual, natural progression rather than immediate transformation. The Stoic path offers sustainable change through consistent practice. Perhaps most importantly, Stoicism reminds us that even our most painful experiences serve a purpose in developing our character. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, insofar as it stands ready against the accidental and the unforeseen, and is not apt to fall." The challenges of toxic relationships, viewed through a Stoic lens, become opportunities to practice virtue, develop resilience, and ultimately create a life of greater wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. As you apply these principles to your own relationships, remember that progress, not perfection, is the goal. Each small step toward healthy detachment is worthy of celebration. In the words of Seneca, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. Dare to detach. Dare to heal. Dare to create relationships worthy of your one precious life. Additional resources. Recommended Stoic texts. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. A personal journal of philosophical reflections with numerous insights on human relationships. Enchiridion by Epictetus. A concise handbook of Stoic principles applicable to daily challenges. Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Correspondence offering practical wisdom on everything from friendship to grief. Discourses by Epictetus. Longer lessons on applying Stoic principles to various life situations. On Duties by Cicero. While not strictly Stoic, this text influenced by Stoicism explores our obligations to others. Modern interpretations. A Guide to the Good Life. The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy by William B. Irvine. How to Think Like a Roman Emperor by Donald Robertson. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Stoicism and the Art of Happiness by Donald Robertson. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Stoic Practices for Daily Implementation. Morning Preparation. Begin each day by contemplating potential relationship challenges and your intended responses. Negative Visualization. Regularly imagine losing relationships to appreciate them appropriately. Evening Review. Examine your interactions, acknowledging successes and identifying areas for improvement. Role Model Reflection. Consider how your Stoic role models would handle difficult relationships. Value Clarification. Periodically revisit your core values to ensure your relationships align with them. Part 8. Common Challenges in Practicing Stoic Detachment. Guilt and the Weight of Expectations. One of the most common obstacles to healthy detachment is guilt, the feeling that we're failing others by prioritizing our well-being. Epictetus addressed this directly. It is better to die of hunger, having lived without grief and fear, than to live with a troubled spirit and in constant fear. Stoic approaches to managing guilt include examining assumptions, questioning whether assumed obligations are truly valid, distinguishing between empathy and responsibility, recognizing others' pain without taking ownership of their emotions, reframing selfishness, understanding that self-care enables sustainable service to others, recognizing false duty, differentiating between genuine obligations and others' manipulative expectations, practicing compassionate firmness, maintaining boundaries with kindness rather than anger. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, do what nature demands. Get through it as you can. Sometimes nature demands that we protect ourselves from harmful relationships, regardless of social expectations. The fear of loneliness. Many remain in toxic relationships due to fear of being alone. The Stoics viewed solitude not as punishment, but as opportunity. Seneca wrote, "The first proof to my mind of a well-ordered mind is a man's ability to remain in one place and linger in his own company." Stoic perspective on loneliness includes distinguishing solitude from loneliness, recognizing that being alone differs from feeling abandoned, valuing quality over quantity, preferring fewer healthy connections to numerous toxic ones, developing self-sufficiency, cultivating the ability to find contentment within, viewing temporary solitude as investment, seeing time alone as preparation for better future relationships, connecting with humanity broadly, finding connection through community service, learning, or contributing to society. Epictetus taught, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. We cannot control whether others provide companionship, but we can develop our internal resources. The challenge of forgiveness without reconciliation. Stoicism emphasizes forgiveness for our own tranquility. Yet this doesn't necessarily mean reconciliation with those who caused harm. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This perspective frames forgiveness as liberation rather than reunion. Stoic forgiveness without reconciliation includes releasing resentment while maintaining distance, letting go of anger without resuming the relationship, understanding versus excusing, recognizing the factors behind harmful behavior without dismissing accountability, wishing well from afar, hoping for the person's growth without needing to witness or participate in it, finding closure internally, creating personal resolution rather than seeking it through interaction, learning without lingering, extracting wisdom from the experience while moving forward. Seneca advised, "Let us be more gentle with one another. We are bad men living among bad men, and only one thing can calm us: mutual forbearance." This forbearance doesn't require continued close relationship. Navigating shared social circles. When detaching from toxic relationships, we often face the challenge of shared communities, friends, or family connections. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. This applies to others' judgments about your relationship choices. Stoic approaches to shared social circles include maintaining dignity without explanation, setting boundaries without feeling obligated to justify them to others, avoiding triangulation, refusing to use mutual connections as intermediaries or allies, practicing selective attendance, choosing events strategically to minimize difficult encounters, preparing mentally, visualizing challenging interactions before they occur and planning virtuous responses, focusing on present interactions, engaging with others without allowing the toxic person to dominate your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius advised, when jarred unavoidably by circumstances, revert at once to yourself, and don't lose the rhythm more than you can help. You'll have a better grasp of harmony if you keep going back to it. Part 9. Stoicism and Self-Compassion in Recovery. The Stoic view of self-compassion. While often portrayed as stern, Stoicism actually embraces a form of self-compassion based on our shared humanity. Seneca wrote, "If you would judge, investigate." This applies to judging ourselves as much as others. Stoic self-compassion includes rational self-assessment, evaluating your choices objectively without harsh self-condemnation, accepting human fallibility, recognizing mistakes as part of the human condition, learning orientation, viewing errors as opportunities for growth rather than reasons for shame, appropriate self-care, attending to genuine needs without indulgence or neglect, self-communication, speaking to yourself as you would to a friend making similar choices. Marcus Aurelius practiced this when he wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." This strictness isn't punitive but aspirational, holding yourself to high standards while accepting imperfect progress. Healing through philosophical reflection. The Stoics viewed philosophy not as abstract theory, but as practical medicine for the soul. Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Recovery from toxic relationships requires examining not just what happened, but our ongoing responses. Stoic healing practices include narrative revision, reframing your experience from victim story to growth journey, virtue identification, recognizing the courage, wisdom, justice, or temperance you've developed through challenge, counterfactual reflection, considering how things might be worse without the lessons learned, value clarification, using difficult experiences to crystallize what truly matters to you. Future orientation, focusing on how your hard-won wisdom will serve you and others going forward. Seneca advised, as long as you live, keep learning how to live. Recovery becomes an ongoing education in living well despite past difficulties. Self-forgiveness as Stoic practice. The Stoics recognized that harsh self-judgment can be as harmful as toxic external relationships. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after, and the truth never harmed anyone." Stoic self-forgiveness includes acknowledging imperfect information, recognizing you made the best decisions you could with what you knew then, separating mistakes from character, distinguishing between actions and your essential worth, taking appropriate responsibility, owning your choices without assuming blame for others' behavior, making amends where possible, addressing genuine harms caused without self-flagellation, committing to future wisdom, focusing on applying lessons rather than ruminating on past errors. Epictetus reminded his students, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This applies equally to our past choices. We use what we've learned and move forward. From victim to philosopher, reclaiming agency. Toxic relationships often create a victim mindset that persists even after the relationship ends. Stoicism offers a path to reclaiming agency. Epictetus, himself a former slave, declared, "No one can hurt you without your consent," while recognizing genuine harms others can cause. This perspective emphasizes our response as a determining factor in lasting impact. The Stoic transition from victim to philosopher includes acknowledging without dwelling, recognizing harm without building identity around it, agency identification, focusing on areas where you retain choice and power, response selection, consciously choosing how past experiences will shape your future, meaning creation, deriving purpose and wisdom from difficult experiences, legacy determination, deciding how your story will ultimately benefit yourself and others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This isn't denying reality, but claiming the power to determine how experiences affect your character and future. Part 10. Integrating Stoicism into daily life after toxic relationships. Morning routine. Setting intentions for detachment. The Stoics placed great emphasis on morning practices to prepare for daily challenges. Seneca advised, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." A Stoic morning routine for relationship healing might include anticipatory reflection, considering potential encounters with toxic people and planning virtuous responses. Value affirmation, reminding yourself of the principles that guide your choices. Gratitude practice, acknowledging positive aspects of life despite relationship challenges. Self-compassion moment, extending kindness to yourself as you navigate ongoing difficulties. Purpose connection, linking today's actions to your larger goals for healing and growth. Marcus Aurelius began his days with, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." This wasn't pessimism, but preparation. Expecting difficulty makes us less reactive when it occurs. Evening reflection, processing, and progress. The Stoics ended their days with careful examination of their thoughts and actions. Seneca described this practice. "I will keep watching myself continually, and a most useful habit. Will review each day. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." Progress recognition, acknowledging growth in your ability to maintain boundaries. Adjustment identification, determining how you might respond more virtuously tomorrow. Self-forgiveness practice, extending compassion for imperfect responses while committing to improvement. Epictetus taught, "Every day and night keep thoughts like these at hand. Write them, read them aloud, talk to yourself and others about them." Philosophical friendship, creating healthy connections. The Stoics valued friendship deeply, not for advantage, but for mutual growth in virtue. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better person of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach. Stoic principles for new relationships after toxic ones include character emphasis, valuing integrity and wisdom over superficial qualities, mutual improvement, seeking connections that foster growth for both parties, truth-telling, prioritizing honest communication over pleasant falsehoods, appropriate vulnerability, sharing authentically without expecting others to manage your emotions, independence within connection, maintaining self-sufficiency while enjoying companionship. Epictetus advised, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." After toxic relationships, this selectivity becomes essential rather than optional. Legacy creation, transforming pain into purpose. The Stoics believed that all experiences, especially difficult ones, could serve a larger purpose. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "A cucumber is bitter? Throw it away. There are briars in the path? Walk around them. That's all you need to know. Nothing more. Don't demand to know why such things exist. Anyone who understands the world will laugh at you, just as a carpenter would if you seemed shocked at finding sawdust in his workshop." Stoic legacy creation includes wisdom extraction, identifying key insights gained through difficult relationships, mentorship offering, helping others navigate similar challenges when appropriate, creative expression, transforming experiences into writing, art, or other meaningful output, value embodiment, living in ways that demonstrate the virtues developed through challenge, community contribution, using your growth to strengthen collective resilience. Seneca wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." Your journey through relationship difficulty equips you with perspective that can benefit many others. Conclusion: the continuing journey. The Stoic path of detachment from toxic relationships isn't a destination, but an ongoing practice. As Epictetus taught, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Each day presents new opportunities to apply Stoic principles, maintaining healthy boundaries, responding virtuously to provocations, and building relationships aligned with your values. Some days will go better than others, and that too is part of the philosophical journey. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Perfection of character is this, to live each day as if it were your last, without frenzy, without apathy, without pretense." This balanced approach, urgent but not anxious, engaged but not attached, serves particularly well when navigating relationship challenges. The ultimate goal isn't merely absence of toxic connections, but presence of flourishing. A life characterized by wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance regardless of external circumstances. This eudaimonia, or good spirit, becomes possible even amid relationship difficulties when we focus on what truly lies within our control. Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each day as a separate life." Each new day offers a fresh opportunity to practice detachment not as isolation, but as freedom. The freedom to choose connections that honor your dignity and contribute to your growth. As you continue applying these Stoic principles, remember that the path isn't always linear. Progress often comes with setbacks, and wisdom accumulates gradually through consistent practice. Be patient with yourself while maintaining the discipline that leads to lasting change. In the words of Epictetus, make it your practice to say to every harsh impression, "You are just an impression and not at all what you appear to be." With time, this practice becomes second nature, allowing you to maintain tranquility even when encountering toxic behavior. The Stoic journey of detachment ultimately leads not to isolation, but to authentic connection with yourself, with others worthy of your time and energy, and with the broader human community. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Adapt yourself to the things among which your lot has been cast, and love sincerely the fellow creatures with whom destiny has ordained that you shall live." May your journey towards Stoic detachment bring you not just freedom from toxic relationships, but a profound peace that comes from living in alignment with your highest values. About the author. The Stoic Journal provides philosophical content inspired by ancient wisdom, but adapted for modern challenges. Our work draws from the Stoic tradition, while incorporating contemporary psychological insights and practical applications. We believe that philosophy should be lived, not merely studied. Our mission is to make ancient wisdom accessible and applicable to everyday life, helping people navigate relationships, work, social media, and the complex emotional landscape of the modern world with greater tranquility and purpose. For more resources on applying Stoic principles to relationship challenges, emotional regulation, professional development, and personal growth, visit our website or follow us on social media platforms. Remember, as Seneca wrote, philosophy is not an occupation of a popular nature, nor is it pursued for the sake of self-advertisement. Its concern is not with words, but with facts. It is not carried on with the object of passing the day in an entertaining sort of way or of removing the boredom from leisure. It molds and builds a soul. It orders our life, guides our conduct, shows us what we should do and what we should leave undone. It sits at the helm and directs our course as we waver amid uncertainties. Without it, no one can live fearlessly or in peace of mind. May your philosophical journey bring you lasting peace and authentic connection.